Good day everyone, I am Sheila Alcalan and I am going to report the lesson 1.1 Science of Trigonometric Functions. So we have two learning outcomes for this lesson. Number 1 is to explain the unit circle and number 2 is to identify the signs of the trigonometric functions. So the unit circle. An angle is in standard position if its initial side lies along the positive x-axis and its vertex is at the origin of a Cartesian plane. So as you can see in the picture, we have the terminal side and the initial side. And the initial side lies along the x-axis and the vertex is at the origin. So the ray on the x-axis is called the initial side and the other ray is called the terminal side. And it is placed at the angle measure formed by traveling counterclockwise along the circle. The angle is measured by the amount of rotation from the initial side to the terminal side. If measured in counterclockwise direction, the measurement is positive, and if it is measured in a clockwise direction, the measurement is negative. A circle drawn in a coordinate system whose center and with a radius of 1 unit is called a unit circle. So this is what a unit circle looks like. And in producing an angle from 0 degrees to 360 degrees, the terminal side will be rotated from the positive x-axis in a counterclockwise direction. The four equal sections of the circle are called quadrants. So we have the quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, and each of the quadrants measures 90 degrees. The measure of the angle in the first quadrant measures between 0 degrees to 90 degrees. In the second quadrant measures 90 degrees and 180 degrees. In the third quadrant measures between 180 degrees and 270 degrees. And in the fourth quadrant measures between 270 degrees and 360 degrees. Signs of the trigonometric functions. The signs of x and y will change if the terminal side of the angle rotates from the positive x-axis in a counterclockwise direction. Observe that if the angle is in the first quadrant, the x and y are positive. In the second quadrant, x is negative and y is positive. In the third quadrant, x and y are both negative. And in the fourth quadrant, x is positive and y is negative. Since familiar naman ta sa Cartesian plane, it is easy for us to determine whether ang x-axis niya is positive or negative and the y-axis is positive or negative. So kung nasa sa right side, ang x-axis is positive and if it is in the left side, it is negative. And sa y pod, kung nasa sa upper part sa Cartesian plane, it is positive. Kung napod siya sa ubos, it is negative. Signs of the trigonometric functions. So we should always remember that the signs of the 6 trigonometric functions will change based on the signs of x and y. So it is very important to know kung unsa ang sign sa x ug sign sa y. While the sign of the radius is always positive. So we have here in the first quadrant where x and y are positive, meaning to say all functions are positive. So all the trigonometric functions in the quadrant 1 are positive. In the second quadrant, where x is negative and y is positive, all those functions containing x are negative. Thus, only sine and cosecant are positive and the cosecant, secant, tangent, and cotangent are negative. In the third quadrant, where x and y are negative, all functions are negative except the tangent and cotangent. So, ang negative po, the cosine, sine, secant, and cosecants are negative. Lastly, in the fourth quadrant, where x is positive and y is negative, all functions containing y are negative. So, meaning to say, ang cosine rog secant ang positive, while ang sine, cosecant, tangent, ug cotangent kay negative sila. So to better understand the signs of the 6 trigonometric functions, we have the summary table here as a reference of the 6 trigonometric functions as angle rotates from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. So, naatay quadrant containing angle, we have the first, second, third, and fourth quadrant, and the six trigonometric function, the sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant. So, as you all notice, in the first quadrant, all of the trigonometric functions are positive, and in the second quadrants, all are negatives except for the sine and cosecant. And in the third quadrant, all are negatives except for the tangent and cotangent. And in the fourth quadrant, all are negatives except for the cosine and secant. So, kung maglibog ta, pwede rin nato siya tanawon ang summary table. So, aside from the summary table that I have shown to you, the signs of the six trigonometric functions can also be summarized using the ASTC group. And we just need to observe that angle rotates from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. So, as you can see in the graph, the quadrant 1 is all, the second quadrant sine, the third quadrant tangent, and the fourth quadrant cosine. A stands for all functions are positive in the first quadrant, and S stands for sine and its reciprocal cosecant are positive in the second quadrant. T stands for tangent and its reciprocal cotangent are positive in the third quadrant. And C stands for cosine and its reciprocal secant are positive in the fourth quadrant. If you understand how the ASTC graph works, then it will be easy for you to determine the signs of the trigonometric functions without looking at the table or at the graph itself. So that's why it is important to be familiar or to know how this ASTC graph works. So I have here an example on how to sketch the angle in standard position and on how to identify the algebraic sign of each particular function. So example number 1 is sine 130 degrees. First is we need to draw a Cartesian plane and also a protractor to measure the angle given in the example. Since we know that the quadrant 1 measures the angle between 0 degrees to 90 degrees and quadrant 2 measures the angle between 90 degrees to 180 degrees, and our given is 130 degrees, then it is expected that the angle 130 degrees is in the second quadrant. So using the protractor, we will locate the 130 degrees. So this is how the angle in the standard position must look like. And as we can see, the angle 130 degrees is in the second quadrant, where sine is positive, therefore sine 130 degrees is also positive. So another example is cosine 235 degrees. So of course, we need a Cartesian plane and also a protractor. So, since ang given is 235 degrees, minusan nato siya og 180 degrees since ang quadrant 1 to quadrant 2 is already measures 180 degrees. So, 235 minus 180 degrees is equals to 55 degrees. So, using a protractor, we will locate the 55 degrees in the lower part in the third quadrant because the measure of third quadrant measures 180 to 270 degrees. So, ang 235 degrees is malocate siya sa third quadrant. So, this is how the 235 degrees looks like. So, the angle 235 degrees is in the third quadrant where cosine angle is negative. Therefore, the cos 235 degree is also negative. So, as you notice, ang movement ani nga to ang ray diri is in a counterclockwise direction. It's because ang ato ang given nga angle is positive. And if it is positive, it is in a counterclockwise direction. Another example is tangent negative 325 degrees. So we will draw a Cartesian plane and also will use a protractor to measure the angle. Since ang ato ang given is negative angle man siya, ang ato ang movement ani is in a clockwise direction. So we will use the quadrant 3 and 4 which measures 180 degrees. I-subtract na to siya sa 325 degrees. 125 degrees minus 180 degrees is equal to 55. So we will locate the 55 angle in the Cartesian plane. So, na-locate na nato ang 55 degrees. So, nga to ang movement ani sa ato ang pagkuan sa angle is in a clockwise direction since negative ang angle. So if we sketch the tangent negative 325 degrees, the angle is in a clockwise direction, padong sa terminal side. So the angle negative 325 degrees is in the first quadrant where tangent angle is positive, therefore the tangent negative 325 is positive.